this year, Williams was at the bottom, maybe ninth or 10th. But in the last two races, Baku and Singapore, they've started to fight for being the top of the lower bottom of lower, just behind Aston Martin. So they've done a very good job. Colapinto has come in and scored points. Albon scored points too. Both of them did that in Baku, and they've made some improvements, and they have signs coming. So in general, I just think that Williams seems to be a team that's humble, that's working hard, and making the most of what they have. When you look at Williams' car, it doesn't have the same aerodynamic curvature that you see in McLaren and those others. That's not their fault. It's just about money, how much you can spend on wind tunnels. Some of these teams share wind tunnels. I think McLaren shares a wind tunnel with Mercedes. These teams have these high-powered wind tunnels. No, it's Aston Martin and Mercedes share. Aston Martin and
It's
yeah, see, we
Aston,
get it
yeah.
good. Even before you caught me, I caught myself. But yeah, thank you. We're Formula One fanatics. We're doing our research. Yeah, so they have these expensive wind tunnels. Aston Martin will have their own. So when you see Williams versus McLaren and guys like Norris who have a fast car and Piastri, no, we don't know that these guys are the best. Like I always talk about guys like Yuki. They have what they do is they have resources. Williams doesn't have these types of resources, and it was very brilliant that they were able to get points in Baku, even though we know that Ferrari crashed. But still, Williams was there to capitalize off of it. And we know how much luck plays in Formula One.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I did sort of look at some data, and over the past four races, Williams has consistently been improving, as opposed to sort of like the more erratic movement that
Yeah,
they
yeah,
had earlier on in the year. They are on an upward trend for the past
yeah,
four races. Um, so it looks like they're starting to
yeah,
understand something, possibly about the ground effect
yeah,
era. Um, and I think also then driver confidence and getting rid of Sargent
yeah.
has
Sargent was
also
a bad thing. Yeah,
put
and also
um,
Albon made a few mistakes too, but Albon is probably. Well, I'll get to that later, but you can continue. Yeah, but Sargent definitely had to go.
yeah. So I think it's put them on an upward trajectory.
Yeah,
So that's what we're seeing at Williams.
yeah,
And of course they're trying to sort of understand the car, to sort of have it ready for the entry of a driver like SAINZ.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so it would be good for them to sort of get that those aerodynamics in order,
yeah, yeah.
uh, their aero packages in order so that they understand exactly where it is that they would be moving towards.
Yeah, I agree. But what I think the part of the problem is that they don't have money because there's a lot of parts that they'll need to have. Like I said, when you compare their car to McLaren car it almost looks like a wave, like a slipstream. Their car looks like a car from 2010, like a kart car. So there are challenges they're facing, but they can make the most out of what they have. And for them to have gotten points in Baku is a great feat because they would have to work on things like wing and back wing and front wing, and they can't really work on the aerodynamics. So it's a very good feat by them and shows that they're very serious. But what I was going to say was, I think they really should be thinking about 2026 because I think there's very little room for improvement for them now unless they can have a total overhaul of their chassis, which they can't. But they can still so kind of go both ways, try to have good performances next year along this line. But at some point, they're going to have to decide to focus on 2026, where they and have bringing in signs and probably some investors will give them money so that they can compete in 2026 because and they've even said it they said their team owner and team principal also said they don't think they can start challenging for races until 2028.
So I absolutely agree with you guys. And Williams has
Yeah,
been steadily improving. Basically, if you look at the upgrades they introduced at Zandvoort, there was a little bit of uncertainty because of disqualification and accident. But fast forward to Baku, we saw the car performing surprisingly well. From the stage of Baku, the car started performing really very well. And it was
yeah,
top speed faster than Red Bull, and Red Bull was having a higher overall top speed. This suggests that Williams made real gains in the reducing the drag and the upgrades. I think the improvement point was the Zandvoort upgrades. They have really boosted their aerodynamics. And then if you look at handling and balance improvements, Williams also had issues, especially in stability and balance, especially at Suzuka. But recent upgrades has helped them to tackle this. They've managed to improve their balance, reducing low speed understeer and high speed oversteer, which is helping the car corner better and feel much stable.
Yeah, they worked on both. And thank you very much. Brilliant. And they worked on both. And what's even so because we all know that Williams is a speed car. They do well on the straights. So they have very low drag, but they're having problems on the corners. But at Baku, what was surprising is first of all, they're accelerating well because they have low drag. They don't have a lot of downforce. But they actually did very well on the winding parts, better than Red Bull on the corners. So that shows that they made some adjustments on their front wing, a flexible front wing, so that when they're on the straights, so they can have more downforce on the corners. But once they get back to the straight, it goes back. So that's where they found their downforce was by some adjustments they made on the front suspension and also the flexible front wing and a little bit of stuff on the back, but it's mostly the front wing, which everybody's taking cues from McLaren. But I want to go back to what
McLaren, yeah.
What they said, Lorato said earlier this year, and this is what I love about Williams. They communicate. Their engineers say that, look, Formula One is about solving problems, but we couldn't solve problems at the beginning of the year because we had weight issues with our car and we had a lot of crashes. So what we're doing now is not special. It's just that now that those things are out of the way, the car is no longer overweight and they're not having a lot of crashes because they had 2 crashes this year, which cost them millions of dollars. One by Sargent and one by Albon. Yeah, his name is Albon. Yeah, that cost them a lot of money. So what he's basically saying is that Formula One is about problem solving. Once they got those issues out of the way, they can now focus on balance, which is what McLaren is way ahead of everybody. But I think that McLaren has been slowly pumping a lot of money, and that's the main issue that puts them ahead of everybody.
I think everyone is spot on. Yeah, I think we've seen a lot of involvement and with regards to development of some of the cars. And like you rightly said, Williams is one of those teams that really have that straight line speed, but has struggled and to bring out the best performance in the car. I think some of their challenge also Williams as a team is they are struggling. It is the budget the Williams have. I think they are not one of the richest team on the grid if you look at it.
So yeah, going back to that point of which you made, there was a lot of chaos earlier in the year for Williams because of weight issues and all of that. And also now that those things aren't a problem, they've managed to start working on balance. But they're always going to be a low drag team, and they have to be that way because they don't have the type of money to spend on super balance, which also, and everybody says aerodynamics and balance is really about the chassis and the tires, but they don't have that money now, but they're making the most out of what they have. What do you think?
Yeah. So I think, the amount of resources that you have towards development really is what is making a difference. In a lot of these situations. I mean, I think it's exactly what sets apart the top 5 teams from the bottom 5. And we are seeing, for example, Aston being on an upward trend with the amount of resources that Lawrence Stroll is spending on the team. So once they get their own wind tunnel, you're going to also see, I think, a big difference and a big shift in their performances. So yeah, I think it would be interesting to see what would be possible if there was some kind of like equalization in terms of resources provided. I mean, there is an attempt to do that with the amount of wind tunnel time that the lower teams get in comparison to the
I agree, but
teams.
I think what we see in Formula One is what we see in the world. Same thing in like sports like soccer. It's just about the big countries that have money, the European countries. So capitalism is a problem, and you're always going to see McLaren, Ferrari, and Mercedes and Red Bull ahead of everybody. And that's why I say it's almost like it's rigged, and everybody else is there just as Unless sometimes you can break through, but for Williams to break through, they would need to find capital investment, countries from Saudi Arabia or from Asia or whatever. And I think that's at the end of the day, it's resources that are so important. Once in a while, you'll have a team that comes out of nowhere. Like Red Bull was nowhere 30 years ago. Then they came up. But what they'll have to do is to come up with resources like Aston Martin did. They're going to have to. And Williams can do that because it's named after one of the greatest Formula One. I don't know if he was a driver, but the owner is Williams, who died 20 years ago. So Williams still has a big name, and that name recognition can bring investors to them, which is why I think SAINZ went there instead of Audi. In other words, because every time I think about Williams, I think about their owner, rest in peace, Williams, who was a great. I don't think he was a racer, but he was a great enthusiast for racing, and I think he was there when Senna died. Right? Was Senna with Williams when that happened? Yeah, yeah, I think so. So yeah,
Yeah.
so they have that name recognition, and I think you're going to see a resurgence from them because they're sort of like McLaren. McLaren was gone for a little while. It took 20 years for them to come back into form. So I think we're going to see a resurgence of Williams by 2028. Let's talk
Yeah.
about Albon is a great driver. Albon was giving Ricardo problems, and the only reason they got rid of Albon is because of Verstappen coming in. Albon was Rookie of the Year in Formula One, his first year. So he's a very good driver, and now they have SAINZ, and I think we can say that they have a great combination going forward. And like by 2028, like they predict, I think they will be starting to fight for wins.
Albon is a great driver,
Yeah.
and
And also one more thing, highly underrated. He's been
yes,
driving for a rubbish team.
yes,
Highly underrated.
yeah.
Go ahead.
But
Yeah.
Albon, very good driver, but with
Sorry, I didn't mean rubbish team, but under rubbish conditions. That's a better word. Go ahead. Yeah.
with Colapinto
Yeah.
on his heels.
Oh yeah, Colapinto is pushing him too. That's another story. Yeah, go ahead.
Franco Colapinto is a very, very precocious talent. He has shown remarkable adaptability. He quickly adjusted to the demands of F1 with his limited experience. He's just a young driver, but his ability to learn and improve has really helped him to stand out. He demonstrated excellent racecraft, particularly in overtaking and defending.
Yeah.
He's aggressive. He has a measured and calculated approach. And I think perhaps if Carlos Sainz, if his move to Williams materializes next season, it will be a very
it's going to happen.
Yeah,
Colapinto will not be running. He will not be driving for them next year. My prediction is Colapinto will end up in Red Bull. He'll be their new South American connection. I'm serious.
Yeah.
That's what I believe. Yeah. What do you think? What do you think, Biodun? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, did you have more to say, Afolabi? You had more to say?
No, it's just to say that Colapinto is young, and Carlos Sainz's experience would bring a unique blend of experience and youth. But we're not quite sure how.
But the problem is that Colapinto won't be driving with them. It'll be Albon and this guy. And Colapinto is going to be hungry to join a new team very quickly. And I think Colapinto might end up in Red Bull if Lawson doesn't work out. Okay. And that's what I think is going to happen. I don't really know for sure.